Hey, Nick Digilio, that's me. Hey, thanks for checking it out. YouTube channel, that's here. Subscribe, tell your friends. My podcast, the Nick D podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network, debuts in under 2 weeks. It's going to be great. Lots of really fun stuff. In fact, the topic that I'm going to talk a little bit about here, I want to get some feedback from you, and we're going to talk about more on the podcast, talk about it more on the podcast as well, the topic that I'm going to get to. A way to help out with all the stuff that I do, if you want to see more videos, if you want more content, if you want to keep these things going, the videos and all that cool stuff, go to patreon.com. Check out patreon.com/NickDShow. You can pick a tier. You can donate monthly, $3, $9, $25 a month, whatever you want to do, and it'll help me out. It'll keep things going. I'll be able to do some more content and more videos and more extras. If you become a patron, you get bonus material and bonus videos, and when we get to live streaming some way down the line, you'll have access to that. You'll get personal messages from me, and also videos that other people won't be able to get, including the videos that tell the actual true story, not the lies, not the bullshit about what went down at WGN and how I wanted to clear my name, because there's been a lot of crap on social media and the internet and so on and so forth, assuming what happened at GN and all kinds of bullshit about me that I wanted to clear up. And the only way that people are going to get that truth is through me telling it. And so I'm telling it. And at this moment, I'm telling it on Patreon to my patrons. So donate a little dough, and you get that extra. You get the extra bonuses, videos, and things like that. Okay, have you ever seen a movie that you hated so much that you got angry? That you got mad. You got really angry. It's happened many times, and I've seen movies that completely pissed me off. I remember going to the screening of the Sex and the City movie, the first Sex and the City movie, and I was missing a Cub game, and it was at a time when the Cubs were in sort of a heated battle, and it was against St. Louis, this game, and I was missing it because I wanted to go to the press screening. I had to review the new Sex and the City movie. This was the first one, not the second one, which was even fucking worse than the first one. But I remember going and okay, I got to review this movie on my show. So, all right, I'll go. So I went to the press screening of it on a night when pretty important Cub game. So I ended up going to this screening at the River East. It was a press screening, and it was open to some of the public, but all the critics were there. All the press, critics, and all kinds of stuff, and we were there. And the screening was supposed to start at 7 o'clock, and I got there at 7:15 at the theater. And I sit down, and all of a sudden, we realize that there is some sort of premiere thing happening on the screen. Live from the Hollywood red carpet of the premiere of Sex and the City. And it's now about 7 o'clock, and they're just starting people showing up at the Sex and the City premiere in New York, with all the stars there, your assholes, whoever fucking idiots, Sarah Parker, Jessica Parker, asshole, and Kim Cattrall, and all the other dickheads that are in that show. And they're all showing up. And suddenly it looks like they're doing this thing, this promo, red carpet coverage of the movie. And it begins to dawn on us that we're going to have to sit through this. And that the actual start time of the movie is not 7 o'clock. So I went up to the publicist, the person who was repping the screening, and I was like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, this is a special half-hour coverage of the red carpet, the big red carpet event, and then we'll start the movie at 7:30. And I'm like, well, you could have told us that it started at 7:30. So now, go back and sit down, and now it's not going to start for another half an hour. It starts at 7:30. So we're already a half an hour. I've already missed a half an hour of the Cub game. And I already don't want to see this movie because Sex and the City is one of the stupidest fucking shows in the history of mankind. And I don't want to see the goddamn movie. And I'm seeing it just because I have to, because it's my job. And now it's starting half an hour late. And then the movie starts. And it's awful. As anybody with eyes and ears and a brain knows, the Sex and the City, the first one and the second one, are shit. They're garbage. And then the goddamn thing turns out to be over 2 hours long, 2 hours and 20 minutes long. So if you want to talk about being angry after seeing a shitty movie, I was beyond angry, and so were a lot of my critic friends, and so were a lot of my critic friends who happen to be Cub fans were pissed off. Cubs ended up winning the game that night, but I didn't get to see any of it. I didn't DVR it because, people are going to tell you the goddamn score before you get home anyway. But anyway, the point is that was a situation where not only the movie was terrible and induced anger, because any Sex and the City movie would induce anger in anybody, but the situation was terrible. We were told it was going to start at a certain time. It started a half an hour later, and during that half hour, we had to sit through the most innocuous bullshit, nonsense, red carpet shit, fashion, Sex and the City. It's as much of a nightmare as you could possibly imagine, this whole red carpet thing. And so not only did we have to sit through that, and then the goddamn thing ends up being like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. So I was really pissed. That's like a huge example of being really mad after seeing a bad movie. But have you seen a movie that you went to see and you were pissed? Like it's bad. We all have seen bad movies. It happens all the time. We watch a terrible movie on cable, or we see it, or we rent it, or we stream it, or we go to a movie theater and then like, Jesus Christ, that was terrible. But when have you been angry? What movies made you fucking angry? I have two stories about screenings that I went to, or movie theater, showings that I went to, where I thought people were going to kill everybody. I thought there was going to be a riot. And it's two movies in particular, two stories in particular that I want to tell, where the audience was, seriously, I've never been in, these two audiences were the most angry audiences ever after a movie. I thought the place was going to riot. I'll get to those. And ironically, or weirdly enough, I love both of the movies that pissed off the audiences. But I was looking online to see what movies made people angry, and I have some here. And some of these beg the questions, like, the question is, like, this movie was so bad, I got so angry. And some of these, I'm looking at these titles, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what the fuck did you expect? Like, for instance, people are pissed off about The Last Airbender. Now, that one I guess I can understand, because, I guess it had a huge following, it was Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated thing. I don't know whether it was a fucking video game too. I don't follow that bullshit. But anyway, people were really pissed off about the movie. So I guess that one makes sense, because the series was beloved and a lot of people were really happy about it and looking forward to it. But leave it to M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong to fuck everything up. So yeah, people were pissed off about The Last Airbender. Suicide Squad, the first one with Will Smith. They made another one, James Gunn made one earlier this year that I think is one of the worst movies of the year. I thought it was terrible, but people were really pissed off about Suicide Squad, and I can understand that. It's an awful movie. But so that's another one that was on the list. Cats. A lot of people were really pissed off after they saw Cats. Again, what do you expect? What did you expect? I mean, the musical is garbage. It's nonsense. It's shit. Seriously? And I didn't make it through the entire movie. I watched like 20 minutes of it. I mean, because I hated the musical, I hated the play. And, yes, I believe they actually did make a shitty musical even shittier with the movie. And it's notoriously at this point, one of the most recent worst movies ever made. But it pissed off a lot of people. Cats. People were angry after that. The Emoji Movie. Again, what did you expect? I read some stuff online where people were like, I was so mad after the Emoji Movie. You went to see a movie called The Emoji Movie. It was an animated movie about fucking emojis. You paid money to see that. You chose to see it. What did you expect? I mean, that's my question to a lot of these. Another one was Jack and Jill, the Adam Sandler movie, where he played himself and his sister. What the fuck did you expect? It's an Adam Sandler movie, number one. And he's playing a girl and himself, he's playing twins in it. What the fuck did you expect? Adam Sandler playing a guy and a girl, twins. It's gonna be garbage. I mean, I was like, Jack and Jill, I thought maybe it might be as good as The Godfather. Al Pacino was in it. Dark Phoenix is another one. People were really pissed off about that. The X-Men offshoot movie. It was a bad movie. I didn't think it was much worse than a lot of the stupid-ass superhero movies. I didn't think it was I mean, I've seen a lot of superhero movies. Like, for instance, I don't think it's any worse than Spider-Man No Way Home, which is a piece of shit. So I don't, but I'm not a big comic. That whole superhero shit, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. The majority of the superhero movies, the Marvel shit, whatever, I don't give a fuck about them. But yeah, it wasn't a very good movie, but I didn't expect it to be great. But people were pissed about Dark Phoenix. Oh my God, people were pissed. And then I guess that brings me to some of the Star Wars movies. People were pissed off about The Rise of Skywalker, and I can understand that. Not a very good movie. A lot of people were pissed off about The Last Jedi, which I think is bullshit because I like The Last Jedi. I think The Last Jedi is actually a really terrific movie. And Rian Johnson, caught all kinds of hell. J.J. Abrams had to come back, to rectify the Star Wars situation because Rian Johnson ruined it by making a really interesting and good movie. So the Star Wars movies. But the big one is Phantom Menace. I remember that was one of those movies where the entire audience was like, when it was, you could feel like it was, it was like a 17-year wait or something like that when that movie came out. 12 years, was it? I don't even remember. 20, what was it, 77 to 90. Yeah, it's like a 20-year wait. So people waited over 20 years for the Star Wars prequel. You had the original three that everybody loves except me. But everybody loves them. And then Phantom Menace comes out, all the hype, all the wait, all these years and years and years. And then it turns out to be fucking Phantom Menace. And we all know what a piece of crap that movie was. And I remember going to the screening of it. It was packed. 600 North Michigan. Went with my first ex-wife. And we went. And people were very excited when the and the fucking scroll of the story came on. Everybody, they started cheering. People went nuts. Half hour in, people started to get a little bit, irritated. You could feel a little tension rising in the room. And by the end, people were just kind of looking at each other. You could tell. So that was one of them where you lost the audience. And you could feel the audience just getting angrier and angrier as the movie went on. One of my friends, one of my best buddies, this guy Mike, a big Star Wars fan, huge Star Wars fan, grew up watching them and all that stuff, was very excited about Phantom Menace, and he went to see it on opening weekend, like millions and millions of people did. He went at the Webster Place Theater. He goes to see it. He's very excited about it. As I said, big Star Wars, big part of his childhood, Star Wars. And so he goes to see Phantom Menace and fucking hates it. And the audience started to hate it, just like the audience I saw it with. 20 minutes, half hour, 40 minutes into the movie, people are like getting restless, and they're like, what the fuck is happening here? I waited over 20 years, George Lucas, for this shit? And people started to get angry. And at one point, there was a guy sitting like in the third row in the front, a few rows ahead of my friend. And there's a part in the movie where they test Anakin for his, like, I don't know, his Jedi juice or what, I don't, any of it. It's all bullshit. But anyway, they do a test on him, Liam Neeson and his mom or something, or Liam Neeson's is doing some test on him to check his Jedi juice or whatever the fuck they do. I guess they take blood from him, or they're checking his Jedi juice, whatever. And they ask, at one point, they ask him, well, who was his father? And the mother or some character says, well, he didn't have a father. Oh. And of course, that adds, like a great, Jesus allegory. To make things even dumber, Lucas adds like a Jesus allegory to it. So when that revelation happened on screen, sitting in the theater, and it's like, we checked his Jedi juice. Who's his father? And they said, no, he doesn't have a father. That guy in the front row in front of my friend screams out, oh yeah, now he's fucking Jesus. Scream that out. Everybody busted out laughing at that point. And at the end of the movie, my friend's watching it, at the very end when the credits came on, that same guy who said, oh yeah, no, he's fucking Jesus, stood up, turned his back and faced the audience, turned his back to the screen and faced the audience and said, okay, how many people thought that sucked? And then he raised his hand, and a whole bunch of people raised their hand. He goes, I'm going home to watch Empire. And he turned around and walked out. So anyway, people were pissed off at Phantom Menace. But the two stories that I have, with the angriest crowds I've ever been a part of. And I've been in movie theaters where movies have been terrible and people have hated it. I mean, look, I just mentioned Phantom Menace. And there have been other movies where I've gotten mad, and, you know, but the two angriest audiences I've ever seen after a movie ended were these two movies. Let's say the first one. The first one, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. So this goes all the way back to 1982. Plaza Theater in Lincolnwood. I went with like 5 of my friends, opening night to see it. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. October 1982. No, 81. 81 or 82. I can't remember exactly what year it was. No, it was 82. 82. So we, all my friends and I, were all go. And at this point, you know, obviously I've become addicted to John Carpenter. He's my favorite director. You know, I loved Halloween. Didn't like Halloween 2 very much at all. In fact, was very disappointed in Halloween 2. But I was excited about Halloween 3 because it was a Halloween, you know, John Carpenter's name was on it. You know, Tommy Lee Wallace, his partner and buddy, wrote it and directed it. Tommy Atkins was in it, you know. So I was like, I was excited about it. It came from the Carpenter camp, and I was pretty excited about it. And now, as you know, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch is sort of notorious being the only Halloween movie that doesn't have anything to do with Michael Myers, doesn't have anything to do with that story, none of that stuff. There's no Michael Myers, there's no slasher in it. And, you know, for a long time, people hated that movie. It's now gotten the respect that it deserves. Halloween 3 is a great movie. Halloween 3 is a fucking great movie. And now, you know, it's considered sort of this masterpiece that was people hated simply because it didn't fit in with the Michael Myers storyline. It actively did not want anything to do with that. And so people were pissed about that. And that night, when people saw it, realized, you know, they started to realize, what the fuck, there's no Michael Myers in this, there's no Jamie Lee Curtis, there's none of the stuff. What is this fucking movie about? It's about a crazy guy in a small town who makes masks, Halloween masks, with a computer chip on the back that has a piece of Stonehenge in it. That when you watch it and a flashing pumpkin comes on the screen, your head explodes and maggots and bugs and snakes come out of your head, and it's going to be a mass sacrifice to his Samhain god. What the fuck is this? And so people were genuinely pissed off. Now, I wasn't. I loved it. From the get-go, I loved it. And still to this day, it's the second best Halloween movie. And all these new ones, Halloween Kills and Halloween 2018, those movies suck. They're garbage. All of the sequels, garbage except for H2O. Halloween H2O is the only one that is even good. But Halloween 3 stands on its own, and it's a brilliant movie. But people were pissed, man. They were, and especially the ending. With Tom Atkins, like, no, stop it. Like the world is going to end if he doesn't call up this TV station and stop them from showing this commercial with a flashing pumpkin on it. The world's going to end. And it's like, stop, no! And it cuts to black. And that's the end of the movie. So not only were people disappointed that it had nothing to do with Michael Myers, not only were they like, what is this movie? What the fuck are we watching? This is the craziest, stupidest movie I've ever seen with masks and sacrifice and Stonehenge? What the fuck is this? Not only were people pissed off about that, but then it ended like that. It had the balls to just end. Black, boom, over. What? I remember the people in that theater, and it was packed. I remember people were pissed. They were pissed. I remember people were punching the seats in front of them. Like, fuck this movie, what the fuck? And they were angry, and they were throwing their popcorn down, and they were stomping out of the theater, and my friends were pissed, except for one guy, Bob. My friend Bob liked it. But everybody else who was with us fucking hated it, and I was like, fuck you guys, it was great. And the idea was, Carpenter's idea was to purposely, he didn't want to make another one, so we got Tommy Lee Jones. He was like, he was so dissatisfied with Halloween 2, because he thought it was so fucking stupid. And that Mustafa Akkad, who like owned the rights, and Universal wanted a sequel, he's like, okay, we'll give you a sequel. Here you go. Here, we're going to call it Halloween 3, and it's not going to have anything to do with Michael Myers. And effectively, they wanted to either end the series or do a new series where they would do a different Halloween movie with a completely different plot, like an anthology, every year. That's what the idea was. They didn't want to do any more Michael Myers shit. And so they thought it would effectively end that. And so they did it on purpose. And so people were pissed. And I remember walking out to the parking lot. People were fucking screaming. There were people outside waiting in line for the next show. And people were going up to them, don't fucking pay money to see Halloween 3. Oh my God, it's the stupidest goddamn movie I've ever seen. There's no Michael Myers in it, blah, blah, blah. And people were pissed. And because I liked it, I didn't say anything, like out loud. I said it to my friends. I was like, fuck you guys. That movie was great. But I was in fear of my life. I thought if I actually stood up and went, hey, I liked it, they would have killed me. I would have had my arms ripped apart. They would have killed. It would have been like the end of Mother, the Jennifer Lawrence movie. They would have treated me like Jennifer Lawrence and just ripped me apart. But anyway, that was the angriest I had ever seen a crowd. I mean, they were fucking mad. And I remember talking to people in school at Luther North, over the next, week or month or so. And to people who had seen it, and they were mad too. It was a movie that made people mad. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch made people mad. And that crowd I saw it with was ready to riot. They were ready to kill somebody. And so that's the first story of a movie that made people fucking furious. Now, of course, 30-some years later, people are finally understanding, 35, almost 40 years later, what a great movie it is. 40 years. It'll be the 40th anniversary this year. So like some 40 years later, people understand how great it is. And I can't tell you the number of times at the Flashback Convention where, we've had people from that film show up, and now people love it. Finally, people understand the genius of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, but man, they were pissed when it first came out. Okay, the second story. And this was without question. This crowd was even angrier than Halloween 3. And what's even crazier is that this screening was free. So people who were pissed off at Halloween 3 actually paid money to see it. These people didn't, the people who were at this screening. This was a radio station screening at the, I want to say the Chestnut Station, the theater, the old theater downtown on Chestnut, the Chestnut Station. I believe that's where it was. Or Burnham Plaza. Burnham Plaza? Maybe it was at the Burnham Plaza. Anyway, it was a WGCI radio station screening. And, as critics, we would get invites to these screenings. If they weren't going to do like a very early press screening, they would invite us to the radio station screenings. And those radio station screenings were either the night or a couple of nights before the movie came out. And, they set aside some tickets for critics. And so I got a ticket for this WGCI sponsored screening. So they had one of the DJs from GCI there. They gave away T-shirts like normally they do at these radio station sponsored screenings, and everybody's hyped up and blah, blah, blah. The van for WGCI was parked out front. All of that stuff for the radio promotion bullshit that you always see, it was all there. So it was GCI, packed crowd, like the place was packed. Everybody was there, and the movie was Raising Kane. Brian De Palma's thriller with John Lithgow, Levita Davidovich, Francis Sternhagen, Stephen Bauer. And that was the movie. Raising Kane, which was Brian De Palma's follow-up to his biggest bomb ever, Bonfire of the Vanities. It was the movie that he followed up Bonfire with. And it was supposed to be like they advertised it like from the master of suspense, and this was like a throwback to like Dress to Kill or, Body Double, those kind of, the master of suspense thrillers, twisty thrillers. He's back after making, a Bonfire. He's back. And so John Lithgow, who was in Blowout, is back, So needless to say, people were pissed after Raising Kane. If you've not seen Raising Kane, I love Raising Kane. I love it. I love most all Brian De Palma. I like Bonfire of the Vanities, for God's sake. So I like almost all of Brian De Palma's movies. He's one of my favorite directors. I think he's a genius, and I fucking love his movies. I am a staunch defender of Brian De Palma. Even the movies that people hate, I will defend. I think he's one of the greatest directors ever to live, and I love his movies. And I love Raising Kane. If you haven't seen it, and a lot of people haven't, John Lithgow plays this child psychologist named Carter Nix. He's a child psychologist. He's written books, and he's married to Lolita Davidovich. And he's a disturbed guy. He's quite disturbed. And he's kept all that in check. But there's a possibility that he has multiple personalities. Like he's a little nuts and he has multiple personalities. When he discovers that his wife, Lolita Davidovich, is having an affair with Stephen Bauer. That makes him go bonkers. He goes nuts. His crazy-ass personalities come out, like a psycho killer and even a child. And he plans murders, and he kills a bunch of people, and he kidnaps his own daughter. And it just gets it's a completely fucking insane movie, with Lithgow just eating up scenery, like chewing up scenery shamelessly, playing like 10 different characters, you know, like ranging from a guy with a terrible accent, like a foreign accent, to like an old guy, to a young, to a kid, to a killer. And it was Lithgow going nuts. Like, De Palma let him cut loose and go fucking nuts and play all these different crazy personalities with different wigs and, you know, all kinds of crazy shit. And it was, for me, it was a total, like, satire of the kind of stuff that De Palma was making. Like, he's like, okay, you want a thriller? You want me to do, like the Dress to Kill and the stuff that I did in the past, and that's what you want? You don't want me to do anything else? Okay, here. And he twisted the thriller to the point where it was unrecognizable. Like, he purposely made it as absurd and over the top and ridiculous as possible. For me, it's like this beautiful, intense, insanely brilliant satire of your thriller, of your twisted thriller, of your murder mystery, multiple personality murder mystery. It was like he took Hitchcock, which he did a million times, and he, like, it's like if Hitchcock dropped a bunch of acid and decided to edit a movie randomly, the result would be Raising Kane. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant movie, but I totally understand why people hate it. I'm the only person in the world, I'm the only person I know that likes it. I think my friend Scott Oken likes it, but everybody fucking hates that movie. Like, I recommended it to people, and I thought I would be killed. You know, I was reviewing movies on Roy Leonard's show at that time. Roy hated it. I reviewed it, gave it a great review, and people were calling up GN and complaining that I gave it a good review. They went to see it, and they hated it. So people hated it. But I'm telling you, when it ended that night at that WGCI screening, I honestly thought that I thought they were going to rip the seats out. People started throwing fucking popcorn and pop containers and throwing them at the screen, and they were breaking and exploding. People were screaming and booing and ripping stuff up and I had never seen anything like it. I mean, it was this short of, like, people, like, like murdering somebody. It was even worse, and I thought it was bad when Halloween 3 ended. When Raising Kane ended, oh my God, and thank God they didn't pay for it, because they would have easily, asked for their money back. You would have had, like, a couple hundred people in a movie theater pissed off, demanding their money back. So at least they didn't pay for it. But I have never, the anger in there was palpable. Like, it was like, and I'm sitting there, like, kind of laughing, because I thought the movie was a brilliant satire, and it was really funny. I thought Lithgow was amazing in it, and I thought it was great. And again, it has another one of those very abrupt endings. Like, what? So on top of the fact that it was, like, ridiculous and over the top and crazy, and I think brilliant, but it had, like, an ending where it just cut to black at the end with the big sort of shock surprise ending. De Palma's like, oh, you want a surprise ending like Carrie? All right, cool. You want a surprise ending like, you want a shock jump ending? Like Dress to Kill, something like that? Okay, I'll give it to you. Here, fuck you. And it was kind of like that. Raising Kane was kind of like a fuck you to people who expect him to make the same movie over and over again. He's like, all right, you want it? Here you go. I think it's brilliant. I think it's great. 1992, it came out. It was in the top 5 on my top 5, top 10 movies. It was in the top 5. But I'm telling you that, I mean, really, I have never seen a theater so angry. So, have you ever been in a theater where people were pissed off when the movie ended? Leave your comments here, and I'm going to talk. I think one of the shows that I'm going to do on my podcast, I'm going to bring this up. I want to talk to Esmeralda about it and get her thoughts, Esmeralda Leon, and get her thoughts on it. But yeah, those are the 2 angriest crowds I've ever seen in a movie theater. Pissed off crowds. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, back in 1982, and then 10 years later, Raising Kane. So, what movies made you angry? Let me hear it from you. All right. Anyway, Raising Kane rules. So does Halloween 3. All right. Thanks for watching, and enjoy.